Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking about everything NBA involving the Timberwolves, the Mavericks, the Celtics, and the preview of the NBA Finals, which we did in segment 2. We broke down the game in segment 1, and we talked about the Timberwolves' future here in the last segment. Here in this fourth segment, we are moving away from the world of basketball and moving on to the world of hockey, the Stanley Cup Finals, the Stanley Cup semifinals. We're going to talk about both games. We're going to talk about the preview of Game 5 between the Oilers and the Stars, and we're going to talk about the review of the game between the Panthers and the Rangers that saw the Panthers take a 3-2 series lead in what was really a kind of crazy game. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, go ahead and leave it in the comments. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. Appreciate all of you for sticking around and watching talking some sports with me on a beautiful Friday afternoon. Once again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, we are going to talk about hockey in this fourth segment of ours here today. We saw the Florida Panthers take a crucial Game 5. And Game 5 in any 7-game series, hockey, basketball, the winner of that wins 80% of the time. So these Game 5s are super important, at least mathematically, for who is going to advance to the Stanley Cup Final. The Panthers take Game 5 in this series. And really, they've been the better team. Just straight up, they've been the better team. The Rangers have been able to keep it close with behind goaltending, really. There was an empty net goal in this game. It's a 3-2 game overall. The Rangers, it was a 1-1 game. Rangers pull their goalie. Then they give up that empty net. It was a 2-1 game. They pull their goalie. Rangers give up that empty net goal. They are able to get it back within one with less than a minute to go, but they were unable to finish up that comeback. The Panthers, just like I said, they've been the better team. They've been able to control the 5-on-5s, and penalties have really been a killer for the for the Rangers. And they did score a shorthanded goal. It's something that they've done quite a bunch in this playoffs, kind of more than they should be, but that's because they've just been in the box way too often. Their penalty kill has been great, but they shouldn't have to be out there so often. It's been very physical. Every single series that they have played has been incredibly physical. Even the sweep over the Capitals, they were very physical, getting in the box. At some point, I mean, in this game, you take 4 penalties. It's just not okay. They keep losing the penalty battle. And that's why they keep losing these games. Igor Shesterkin, as much as he is standing on his head, he had 34 saves on 36 shots, 944 save percentage, which is crazy nowadays. You know, the average goalie is kind of sitting at around 900 save percentage. But Sergei Bobrovsky on the other end, that's really what this series was, a battle between goaltenders, and playoff Bob shows up in the playoffs. Big Bob, playoff Bob, he's done this now 2 years in a row where, you know, the Panthers, they made that incredible run to the finals last season, and now they are looking like they might be able to do it again. 2 years in a row. It's a lot of hockey, a lot of wear and tear on these guys, but it's really cool to see the ability to bounce back from a brutal loss in the finals last season and keep that momentum up and keep playing. It's not easy to do, especially in the sport of hockey, and a lot of that comes down to, you know, their physicality, especially the way they play. They're so physical. Their physicality is something that the Rangers are a team that can keep up with them, but the Rangers don't really seem like a good team, and I've said this before, and maybe I'm just not understanding it. But when I'm watching these games, when I'm watching the hockey games that are on in the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Rangers just don't look like a great team. They have a great goalie in Igor Shesterkin, and their defense is good, and they're a good team. Don't get me wrong; they're not a bad team. They're a good team, but nothing about them screams great. There's no great offensive weapon that I can look at and be like, oh, he's got the puck. You better be careful. There's no defense. There's no way the defense is playing that makes me think, oh my goodness, it's going to be tough to get a shot on these guys. You take a look at the shot numbers. They're giving up like almost two thirds. They're giving up about twice as many shots as they are taking. On shots on goal at least. It's all been down to Sergei Bobrovsky, who is it's all been down to Igor Shesterkin, excuse me, who has been wonderful in this playoff run. And you cannot have a successful playoff run without a goalie. You just can't. But I would like to see some more 5-on-5, and really the one thing I would like to see for the Rangers to win this, to come back and win this series, is just to stay out of the penalty box. I know the Panthers haven't been the greatest in this series at converting the opportunities they're getting, and a lot of that credit can go to the special teams of the New York Rangers. But you cannot keep going to the penalty box. You're putting too much pressure on your goal on Igor Shesterkin already, even on 5-on-5s. When you get into those 5-on-4 situations, it's it's kind of getting to a point where they're skating by. They're barely every game they've won has been in overtime. You know, they haven't come out and dominated in any single game. The Panthers dominated in game 1. They dominated most of game 4. Now, I know that game went to overtime as well, but they for a large chunk of that game were, especially second period on, they were pretty much in control. Game 5 here, again, the same story. It wasn't as dominant. It wasn't that uneven, but they were still just the better team on ice from what I was seeing. I need to see New York play with fire, and this is going to be their first elimination game that they're facing facing this postseason. So we'll see if they're able to react with their backs against the wall and force a Game 7 back at the Garden. It seems like both of these series are destined to go 7, especially with 3 of the 5 games in this series alone going to overtime. So that being said, I expect for the game on Saturday, the Rangers to take it. Just because I selfishly want Game 7, and I think this series deserves to go 7, or kind of has that feeling that it has to go 7. But it is in Florida. It is in Sunshine, Florida. So it's gonna be tough for them to pull it out. Game 6 elimination game, but backs against the wall. I think you get at least one. Take the series back to New York in the Garden, and we'll see what happens from there. The other Game 5 though, from this one coming up today between the Oilers and the Stars. Again, same premise. It's very, very important. Game 5s are hugely important in best of 7 series. Both of these series have been really close, and I think this game kind of comes down to the health of Chris Tanev. Uh, if he's playing tonight, which he's going to be a game time decision. Uh, I think the Stars can pull this out because he's been maybe the best defenseman in the entirety of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, and going up against Connor McDavid, you need your best defenseman out there. If he isn't there, it's not to say that they can't win. Looking like they're optimistic he can play, but it will be a game time decision. I think that's what this is going to come down to. If he plays, I'm taking the Stars to take Game 5 at home. If he doesn't, there was a lot of momentum gained from the Oilers in their 5-2 win in Game 4. Again, that kind of felt like a backs to the wall game for them, and they were able to respond very nicely, just like they've done in every single game, every single elimination game they've faced so far this postseason. They've been able to respond, and the Stars are, no stranger to falling behind or seemingly losing momentum. They were down 2-0 against the Vegas Golden Knights. They were down 1-0 against the Colorado Avalanche. So they've been able to battle back before. I think, like I said, I think this comes down to Chris Tanev. Reports are that they're optimistic he can play. That's the most recent report, so I'm going to take the Stars in a close one. But again, if he doesn't play, I think the Oilers are going to take it. So we'll have to see what happens in that game. Game 5 is tonight. Game 6 is on Sunday. We will break all of that down. Maybe even have a Stanley Cup Finals matchup for you on Monday. World of Hockey is the hockey playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs are coming down to the wire, and we'll keep you updated on everything going on there here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. But in our fifth and final segment here today, we are going to move on and talk about some baseball. We're going to do our bi-weekly power rankings. It has been just over 2 weeks. It's been 16 days since we did our last power rankings, which was on May 15th. It is now May 31st, so we will go over that coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.